some of the airlines have got with the FAA to address the inexperience levels of the pilots flowing into the airlines. And yeah, this is a thing that's happening right now.
There's a huge Wall Street Journal article that just came out, about that, and about how inexperienced some of the captains are at some of the airlines, and that these were corporate pilots, but that all the airlines draw from the corporate world, and then they hire less and less experienced people because that's all that's available,
Hello, aviators. Welcome back to the Profile Playbook podcast, where we bring you the knowledge and tools to enable you to become a pilot faster and cheaper. I'm Sean Ritchie.
And I'm Mike Martin.
And we took a break there for a couple weeks with, had all kinds of stuff going on. November, traditionally, at least for me, in the business jet management world, the last couple of years, November has been our busiest month. And this November, for the company I'm working at right now, this is on record our busiest November ever. Actually, just yesterday, which was Thursday, November 9th, may have been our busiest day in the company's history.
Wow. It looks like where are you at now? It looks like you're in a Marriott or something.
I am in a Hilton Garden Inn I'm out in Napa, California.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
nice.
I'm
Wine
on the
country.
road. Yeah, it is. I'm on the road here till Sunday. And
okay. Cool.
Sitting around here a little bit. Thought we'd have a chance to finally record one of these things.
Yeah. And we did let the viewers know too. We started our live coaching sessions for our course members that choose to do that. And that's going really well. So we have been keeping up on that weekly. Got a lot of great customers in that. And we're actually getting great podcast ideas. Just finished one.
Yeah. Just coming up with them.
And it's actually it's given us great podcast material too, because they're asking a lot of questions and we're learning about their progress. So hopefully some good content coming forward from that. We've got a lot of people that are looking into how to start their training in different schools, and then they're bringing their weekly feedback about their interactions with interviewing these different schools. So hopefully within a short period of time, we'll have some good information on that stuff.
Yeah, maybe it specifically, one of the folks in the coaching call program is possibly, he did all the research. He's going with American Flyers rather than ATP, which is American Flyers is ATP's biggest competitor. So we're probably going to put a show together on that, comparing the two. And I think that would be some really good, useful information for you guys.
Right. And we're helping people work through some second career stuff, some medical issues and things like that. So it's all good information that we'll be able to share with anybody. We're talking about maybe even filming one of these coaching sessions because there's a lot of questions they can answer just by watching it,
Mm-hmm.
But what do we got? What do we got for a topic?
Yeah, this week's episode, I'm sitting in a hotel room. It's been crazy busy. I don't want to portray this as us being lazy or something, because it's totally not the case. It's just every time you turn around, there's something else on fire. But we thought we'd put together something with some of these crazy aviation stories that have been coming out the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
From people doing psychedelic drugs while jump seating in the cockpit of an airliner to we got an airliner that took off missing windows, or possibly they popped out after they were in flight. That's still up for debate. And then, of course, there's the Houston Hobby midair. Well, not necessarily midair, but collision.
Mid-ground collision. Yeah.
Mid-ground collision. Right.
All right. Yeah. Well, let's start with this. I mean, this is one of the craziest stories. I mean, this prompted the podcast because this has got to be one of the most bizarre things I've seen in my 20 plus 30 years in aviation ever heard of, so we got a pilot here. And normally, and our viewers know, pilots go through so much testing and so much dedication it requires to actually make it to be an airline pilot, and rigorous training and medical testing and all this stuff. It's very, very uncommon that you see a pilot, use drugs or even talk about drugs or any of that stuff, just because there's so much involved, with it, and they don't want to risk their career or anything. But this is a unique case. So we've got a guy, airline pilot, high on psychedelic mushrooms that disrupted a flight crew. So yeah, this is all over. I'm sure you might have saw it on the news, but we're going to kind of break it down for you. So this Joseph Emerson, he's a pilot for Alaskan Airlines, right? And it sounds like he went. He's been struggling with some depression, which I'll get into in a little bit. We'll talk about. He's 44. He's off duty, so this is a big thing. And for our viewers, one of the privileges of being a 121 or airline pilot is you can fly around for free. A lot of times you ride in the cabin, isn't that right, Sean? And sometimes you ride in the jump seat.
Yeah, if there's a seat available in the back, you usually take it because it's way more comfortable than sitting in the jump seat.
Yeah.
So you usually and the flight crew would probably prefer, the pilots would probably prefer you sit back there anyway.
But these pilots would have preferred that.
Yeah.
So here's this guy. He's 44. He lives in San Francisco Bay Area, it sounds like, and he's up in Washington or somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, apparently hanging out with his buddies. And I just read a New York Times article that gave a little more information. It's basically showing that they had a bonfire or something. They were all drinking. He admits whiskey and beer, and then somebody hands him some mushrooms. He's never done them before. And they're telling him, hey, it won't show up on a drug test. It's no big deal, whatever. So this guy takes this stuff, and it doesn't really go into detail what he experienced at the time. I think it says, actually, a New York Times article says he just thought the fire wasn't real and nothing was real, and he was just fixated on the crackling of the fire. Well, whatever. I guess this stayed in his system so long, he decides he's going to go back to his house. He's not flying. He's going to just ride on the airlines for free back to San Francisco. And he's been up at that point for over 40 hours. So I guess when you're on this stuff, you don't sleep or anything. So he I guess there was no more room in the cabin. It was an Embraer 175, which is a really large regional jet. It's not quite as big as an airliner, but it's big. It looks like a mini 737. So he's riding in the jump seat. For whatever reason, he says he doesn't even know it was real or whatever. He's paranoid. He thinks he's having a nervous breakdown. He does so. So he reaches up, and this is how bad this was. The fire handles in the Embraer are in the overhead in between.
We should explain something here, Mike. This would be good for us too, because most of the news reports when it first came out, and probably still people talking about it, they kept saying he tried to shut off the engines or cut off the engines or shut down the motors. What he was actually doing was reaching for the fire handles, and any jet aircraft I know of has what we call a fire handle. And when you have an engine fire in one of these jets, this handle will start sometimes there's a bell or an audible tune or something sound, but the handle will glow red, let you know which handle to pull. You have one for each engine, or maybe you have 3 or 4 if you had more engines. But when you pull that lever, it does several things. It cuts fuel to the engine. It disconnects the generator from the accessory box. It kills the hydraulic pumps. It'll disarm thrust reversers, depending on which. Depending on which airplane you're flying, it could do anything from 3 things to 7 different things when you pull.
It's a great check ride question too. They always ask.
What happens when you pull the fire? Yeah, that's every airplane's check ride. But that's what he was reaching for. But go ahead with your story, Mike.
Yeah. So, but it indeed is just as if it's like if you're in a car and you turn off the ignition. I mean, it has the same effect. Thing. Or if he would have took the throttles and pulled them all the way to cut off, if it was that type of jet. So he reaches up and he pulls the right fire handle, and he actually pulls it. And there's an indication on the screens and everything. And from what I'm hearing, there's a delay. So basically it shuts the engine down and then it arms the fire suppression system. And then I think in this plane, it sounded like, I'm not an expert on the Embraer, but it actually blows the bottle a few seconds later. Well, what the pilots are like, what the hell is going on? So they get up and they reach the guy, the co-pilot grabs the guy's hand and pushes the handle back in. So I guess in this airplane, it's not permanent. If you actually pull that, when it goes back in, it prevents the engine from dying. So
Yeah.
it was.
I suppose as long as you got fuel running back into it and everything's turning, it should fire right back up.
Right back up.
Maybe a compressor stall or something here or there, but
totally.
Yeah.
So the engineers had in mind, if you had a crazed jump seater that was high on mushrooms, they put a little delay in there just in case. So. Right. So he pushes it back on. So now they say there's a 90-second skirmish between the pilots and the jump seater. And they actually don't throw him out. They're pushing him around and all this stuff. He leaves the cockpit on his own will because the guy's not right. And he goes into the cabin and they lock the door, obviously, behind him. So the threat is now separated from the cockpit. And then I guess he tells the flight attendant, hey, you need to handcuff me right now because I'm out of my mind, basically, or whatever. Well, they get him calmed down. They get him sitting down and everything. And then apparently at some point he goes for the door. So he's trying to open the main door in flight also, which obviously is a really bad situation also because it can decompress the airplane. So really just bizarre story. So they arrest him. They land immediately. The police arrest him. And this guy, man, this is a very, very serious situation. I mean, he's getting 84 there's 84 people on board. So he's getting 84 counts of attempted murder. He's not really,
that's just nuts to me.
He's not really, he's admitting to everything. He initially told the crew, I think, that he had been up and wasn't feeling, he was suffering from a panic attack and had been up, but later he admitted he was using those mushrooms. So yeah, I feel bad for the guy. He said, it was the first time he did them. He said he just had a friend die and he had been very depressed. And I don't know. I've been looking here to see what he actually, I don't think they know. I think he hasn't been sentenced or anything. He was just charged. Gotcha. So there's no, and his wife came forward, saying he was just battling with depression, but he's a good guy and his neighbors and all that, which I believe. I mean, he's made it this far in his career, but yeah, man, I'll tell you. And Sean, this is a topic that has been going around recently.
The depression thing. Real quick before we get onto that, and I forget to mention this, just as anybody watching this thinking that, oh wow, opening that door in flight, chances are if they were at any kind of altitude, you can't open that door in an airliner. This is just one of those general nonsense pieces of I call it useless information. I've always been one of those people that are loaded with useless information. You can wheel out at any time,
right.
But at altitude, you cannot open the door of that airplane. It would be absolutely impossible, nor can you open a emergency exit on an airliner at altitude. It's a plug style door, and you're looking at about 200 pounds per square inch of cabin pressure holding that door. You can move the handle, you can pull the handle on the emergency exit, but that plug is not coming out of there with that much force on there. And it was purposefully designed that way. I mean, you didn't want to give the power of opening a door to a bunch of imbeciles in the back that could go, that are back there drinking and whatever else,
Have you seen the Wolf of Wall Street when they're high on those Quaaludes on the airplane? They end up getting all the seatbelt extenders and tying them.
Yes,
it's crazy.
I love that movie. It's in my top 5 movies.
Crazy, and he doesn't remember any of it. Ooh, man. But so this depression thing is an issue because the FAA, and for rightly so, they don't allow pilots to take any kind of mood altering substances. This goes for depression medicine. It goes for ADHD medicine, Adderall. There's a lot. That's a very common medicine. And Vyvanse. There's probably quite a few viewers and aspiring pilots that are on that. And it's very, very commonplace. It helps people focus. And some people may say, well, it would help me be a better pilot. And that might be true. But in the eyes of the feds, it has been like this forever, is they don't want anything that could cloud your mind or judgment, any type of medication whatsoever. So what that's caused is a lot of pilots with depression or ADHD or whatever to go undiagnosed, because if they get treated, then they're going to lose their flying job, and it's just kind of known. I mean, you can. So then they self-treat, they self-medicate probably with alcohol and booze or whatever this guy was trying to do, because he's upset about his friend dying and all that stuff. So I have heard, I don't know what you know on this topic, Sean, but I've heard that they're going to start loosening up, and there's certain antidepressants and controlled usage they're going to allow and stuff. Do you know anything about that?
I do not. I do not know anything about that, but I've heard that for years, that pilots, there's a little bit of a stigma on pilots being drinkers, and some of that's the only drug that's legal for pilots to use as a coping mechanism.
Yes,
but I mean, it goes all the way back to a lot of people have seen the movie The Right Stuff, but if you read the book The Right Stuff, which is almost like a completely different story than that movie, actually the author of that book, I heard, was disappointed with the outcome of the movie versus the book that he wrote. But the first quarter of that book is all about these military guys and drinking. I'm not exaggerating. It's pretty much the first quarter of the book, how they would go out and fly all day, and they had these stressful jobs. They're doing all these test pilot things.
Right.
Their day consisted of going up and flying these jets and then drinking for the rest of the night till they passed out, went to bed.
Right.
And so it's had a stigma in the aviation world forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Another good book, if you're interested in this topic, there's a book called Flying Drunk. And it was written by Joseph Balzer. It was written in the late 90s, but this guy flew an airliner drunk. It's a crazy story, but really he was out drinking the night before. It was a Northwest Airlines crew, the captain, the co-pilot, and the flight engineer, and they were in Fargo on an overnight, and they went out and got hammered. And the captain was a hothead. He ended up getting in a fight. He's an ex-Marine, and the bar owners they were bragging to everybody that they were pilots. Bar owners ended up calling the police, and then the police notified the FAA, and then they stopped these guys but didn't breathalyze them, and they seemed fine. But then, so they took off and went from Fargo to Minneapolis, which was the headquarters for Northwest Airlines. So the FAA notified Northwest Airlines. Northwest Airlines then breathalyzed them when they landed in Minnesota, and they all tested positive. So then there was this super high profile. It was on every news channel trial. The outcome of that's all in the book. But the incredible story is that Joseph Balzer, this guy that was the flight engineer, he actually ended up going to jail, got stripped of all his ratings, and then quit drinking, reinvented himself, and actually took all his check rides over again, went back to flying night freight again, all the way up and flew corporate, and then got a job at American Airlines. Just an incredible story. And then finished his career out at American after, changing his life over this incident. But there's an audio version and, obviously a paper version, but you won't be able to put it down. It's really good. It goes through the whole trial and everything. And his experience being, there was not to digress, but there was he was, as you would think, a pilot would be sent to a minimum security prison, and he was. Well, the warden there was paranoid. The prison was directly next to a small GA airport, and he was convinced that he could escape by running over the airport and stealing a plane. The warden did. So they moved him to this like super max prison in Atlanta with all these thugs, and he describes in detail what it's like, being involved in that. So highly recommend that book. But it wasn't a plug for the book, but you got me out on a tangent. But yeah, this is an issue. I mean, we had the guy in Denver that beat up the freaking parking meter with an axe.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, give that guy a beer. Damn.
So yeah, this stuff does happen, So the FAA is watching. So maybe there'll be some good fallout from this. I don't know. Maybe it'll be worse. Maybe they'll double down on drug testing for us.
Yeah, but I'm sure somebody was mentioning it on one of the Facebook groups or whatever. What was it, 84 counts of attempted murder. Somebody was like, well, more like 84 counts of attempted gliding. They could have just got the airplane running again and blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
But, then
crazy.
Yes.
So Sean, what's
the other thing is the FFDO program. There could be a lot of stuff that comes out of the FFDO program is the Federal Flight Deck Officer Program.
Yes.
Which is the government program that allows U.S. pilots to carry firearms. You have to go you have to be selected for it, apply, be selected. It's a big deal to get in there. But they'll actually issue you a gun and so much ammunition to go train. And all the training is done like in a seat and turning around and shooting from a seat, but what if those guys, the question came up, what if those guys were FFDOs and one of them had a gun in the cockpit? Well, then what would have happened? So we could see some bad fallout from this, like that program going away. And like you said, with the testing, who knows?
Yeah. You don't know, man. So what's this one, Sean, the blown windows on this Airbus?
Yeah. So this happened over in England. There was a Airbus 321, A321, which is that's an airliner. It does not say the name of an airline. It says it was a charter. It was a charter flight. So it could have just been
London to Orlando.
Yeah. It could have just been a charter operator that does this. But there was only 9 passengers on the airplane. That when I first saw this story, I'm like, how in the hell does somebody not know there's a window missing? But then you start thinking about it. Well, there's actually 2 windows. There's the outside actual pressure vessel window. And then there's that little plastic window that holds it's like the barrier in between the shade that goes up and down.
Mm-hmm.
It's along that little plastic thing. That's nothing. That's just to keep people from touching the actual, it also deals with keeping things from fogging up too. So the windows don't get all fogged up and iced over and stuff like that. But so this thing was either missing windows or the windows were loose and popped out after the airplane started pressurizing. And they made it to 14,000 feet. The crew started hearing loud noises. One of the passengers reported it was loud enough it could have caused hearing damage. It was colder in the airplane than it should have been. And they made it to about, then that's when they realized something was going on with these windows over here. They could see the window stripping, flapping in the wind, and all the noise was coming from these 2 windows right next to each other. They made it to about 14,000 feet, which is just about the time where the pressurization system really, really starts to take effect. It starts building the differential pressure as soon as you take off. But by and large, there's no damage that could have it wasn't high enough for anybody to deal with any altitude sickness or anything like that. I mean, you can climb mountains in Colorado that are, 14,000.
Yeah. Yeah,
feet.
Totally. Yeah. We used to drop skydivers at 14,000.
Yeah, exactly. But so they get back on the ground. They notice 2 windows are right next to each other, are missing out of the side of this airplane. And a third one was about to come out. So, and that's about all the story we have. Nothing else has been released on it. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was, but it's just the way the story was presented in the media. When you saw the initial story, it was like airliner takes off without windows installed.
Right.
And I don't know. I thought that was, after actually digging into it a little bit, I thought that was a little extreme. It's possible that somebody was doing maintenance on the airplane, or somebody hit the airplane with something and knocked something loose and they popped out after it started pressurizing. But it would have been difficult to notice that the windows were missing if they were
Yes.
missing. There's only 8 passengers on the airplane. Nobody's sitting in that seat, most likely, to say, "Hey, something looks weird here." Or it's possible during a pre-flight, a crew member may not have looked up at the windows. Most time you're checking out your tires and landing gear, your movable control surfaces and stuff. Glancing at every one of those windows may not be in your normal routine. However,
Right.
maybe it sounds like it
Should
should
be.
be. Yeah. But
Man.
yeah.
Yeah, when I did my Learjet initial a long time ago on the Lear 35 at CAE in Dallas, they had a Lear windshield in the classroom, an actual one you could see, and then they
Oh yeah.
shot it with
I
like
remember that.
5 different guns, and you could see the impact of on the glass and the webbing. None of the guns went through, but I remember one of them was a 30-06. So somebody, and they had the range on there. This guy shot this windshield with a 30-06 at like 50 feet or something, and it made a mark, but nothing like. I mean, these are actual bulletproof glass, so yeah, it's
Yeah, I mean that.
serious.
Yeah, I don't know about that Lear windshield, man. It was thick. That was a
Yeah,
thick piece of glass.
yeah, yeah. And then we got another one, busy week or so, 2 weeks in aviation. This one was
Sure.
really bad. I mean, this is just a complete pilot error problem. But
Yep.
Houston Hobby Airport, and you guys can look this airport up, but basically it's a very busy uh, airport, probably second busiest in Houston. George Bush is the big one, but they have intersecting runways, just like Chicago Midway. So I think it's runway 2, 2, and 4, and then 3, 4 right or something. I don't know, but they intersect in the middle, and when you get a takeoff clearance, they can either just say you're clear for takeoff when you're sitting waiting, or they used to say you could taxi in position and hold. Now they changed that terminology to line up and wait. What that means is you're not cleared for takeoff, but you can get ready. So you can get the airplane all lined up, ready to go, hold the brakes, and then when they say go, you can take off. And this is common in very busy airports when they're trying to move the metal. So they did this. They had a Hawker 800 XP, which actually I used to fly. It's a nice, sizable business jet. Pulls out on one of the runways. His clearance is to line up and wait. And the reason why is they've got a Cessna Mustang, which is a very small, newer, modern business jet, landing on the intersecting runway. So they want him in position so they can launch him as soon as the Mustang is clear, but they don't want him to take off.
Right.
Well, I don't, for whatever reason, there's some confusion in the cockpit, and they confuse the lineup and wait with the takeoff and go. So they take off. The plane starts accelerating down the runway. The Mustang is landing, and they can't necessarily see it because it's an intersecting runway, so they'd have to look hard to the right. The Mustang crosses just behind the Hawker, and the wing of the Mustang hits the tail of the Hawker, and you should see some of these pictures. It did quite a bit of damage. Unbelievably, nobody was hurt. The Hawker, they don't abort because I guess they're going too fast. They actually take the airplane in the air, and that's a tough airplane. It's an old school plane. They take that jet in the air, fly it around the traffic pattern, and land. Everybody survives, but I'll tell you what, man, I wouldn't want to be those pilots, man, because all of that is recorded. Oh,
Yeah.
holy cow, man. True.
Yeah, they're in a situation where they just gotta realize they screwed up, and there's no. Yeah, that Hawker is built like a tank, though. I've flew one too. I'm typed in. I've recently flown one. That it blows my mind how much it's made by Hawkers over in England. It's a British tank, we call it. I mean, everything on that thing is over manufactured.
Built to the hilt, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is reminiscent, Sean, of the Comair crash. So a lot of people think, well, where was the controller? Why wasn't he started rolling? Well, I read an article that ATC actually said something to him, and I guess they ignored it. I don't know what the hell was going on. We'll hear that once the cockpit voice recorder comes out and everything. But the controllers actually did see him rolling, apparently, is one article I read. There's a case in Lexington, Kentucky, and then they've now changed the configuration of the airport due to this. But they had a short runway and a long runway, and the thresholds met. So when you were clear for takeoff, you make a hard left turn and you would be on the long runway, or you could make a slight left turn, but they both started in the same position and you'd be on a short runway. One was like 3,000, the other was like 9,000. Well, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. Comair, which was a commuter airline for Delta that's now out of business, but in a Canadair regional jet, clears them for takeoff. They line up with the short runway instead of the long one. The guy in the tower was looking down. Which he didn't get in trouble, I don't think. I mean, they cleared him for takeoff. I don't know. He was getting coffee or whatever.
Right.
And they start rolling on the short runway and they don't have enough and they hit the trees and it was real bad. Lots of people died.
Yep.
I think the co-pilot
the co-pilot lived. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I don't want to say questions, but there was a lot of goofy stuff going on there. I mean, I think that the lights weren't even on for that runway. So now there's a question of that, but it could have been one of those low foggy kind of, but it was the first flight of the morning too. It was super early in the morning, it was at 5:30 or 6 a.m. departure. So you got the grogginess going on, but yeah, the controller is absent from all of this after he clears him for taking off.
Right.
Yeah. Where did he go? Was he not paying attention? Yeah. There was always a lot of questions about how that could have happened. The lights not being on really bothered me the most.
Yeah. Now we've got some systems when you're clear for takeoff, the lights will change, and the hot spots. You could talk to them about that, Sean. A lot of times there's hot spots on the airport.
Yeah, we have that accident brought up all kinds of things. The FAA went in, looked at stuff. Mike, I think you mentioned, but they redesigned the airport. They went in and chopped that piece of the runway out and put in more taxiways. So now that mistake can't even be made. But on your charts now, you have these little red circles on the airport diagrams where you have multiple taxiways or runways to intersect, or possibly there's even spots like I think Boston has some of these where it's all concrete. There's no grass separators or barriers, and they'll mark that a hot spot because it's very difficult to decipher what's a taxiway, what's a ramp, and that always bothers me anyway, because as soon as a little bit of snow gets on the ground, it's a disaster because you can't see the lines. Sometimes there's no grass separating anything. It's just one big concrete pad. But yeah, so they got that hotspot thing on the charts now. There's I think some of the, well, I don't want to say that, but I mean, there was a lot of changes that came from that accident. But yeah, the co-pilot lived. He was in intensive care for a long time, maybe even a coma or something.
Yeah.
But it was just a real nasty accident. And they say that, I guess a lot of the passengers, I don't know how much I should dive into this, but the passengers were alive and the airplane had caught on fire.
Yeah.
They couldn't get out. But I've heard this about airline crashes in the past. Chances are if you're in an airliner crash, airplane crash in general, you will survive the crash. It's, smoke will get you or you'll get burned. What happens is those aluminum brackets you're sitting on those seats, they're in impact. The seats will break off from the fuselage. And now you have all these seats just clambering around inside the cabin, breaking people's arms and legs and backs and stuff. Woo. And, then you have the potential for fire and nobody can get out of the thing. But,
it's not good, man.
Yeah, that's a gloomy story.
No, but from you're a former survival instructor, so you've dealt with this kind of stuff and taught that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is just the important thing is better cockpit procedures. It's a very common thing. The taxi lights will be on for taxi, but you don't turn the actual landing light on until you're clear for takeoff.
That's a big one. I'm a big pet peeve of mine. Yeah.
Yes. And then same thing when you're clear to land, because you can cause a crash the same way. You're clear for the visual, you're making your way into land at the airport, but then you're not actually cleared to land by the tower. So clear to land typically means turn on the landing light. That means you're clear to land. That prevents you then from landing without a clearance, which could cause the same type of problems because they're all human, man. The controllers make mistakes, the pilots make mistakes. I mean, and then
Right.
that's why it's good to have two pilots to double check each other. When you're in a single pilot environment, it's tough. Sometimes now you got a lot of software aiding and helping, but in this particular case, I mean, yeah, I think it was just the pilots. Maybe I mean, I guess it's an advantage to talk about with some of our viewers, but it may come out in who knows. But that these guys are really inexperienced pilots. But that's kind of the nature of what we're dealing with. People are upgrading so quickly and advancing to the airlines and stuff like that.
Aviation's moving so fast. I just saw there was an article on one of the Facebook groups that the FAA, some of the airlines have got with the FAA to address the inexperience levels of the pilots flowing into the airlines. And yeah, this is a thing that's happening right now.
There's a huge Wall Street Journal article that just came out, about that and about how inexperienced some of the captains are at some of the airlines, and that these were corporate pilots, but that all the airlines draw from the corporate world, and then they hire less and less experienced people because that's all that's available. So this is a byproduct of our viewers are watching because they want to become professional pilots, and the market is better than ever, and that's great, and it is great. But this is a byproduct. This is a negative of that. It used to take. I mean, I flew in the right seat of a Hawker, but by the time I was probably 30 years old plus when I was doing it, and I had thousands of hours in different jets before I was in the right seat of even something like that. So now it might be a guy has 2 years experience and he's in that, and It's not bad. I mean, a lot of people can do it, but some things can be missed. But it's just interesting though. We got these a couple different interesting stories here. That anything else in the news, Sean, that's been good lately?
I don't know. I heard that there's this Pro Pilot Playbook podcast that's real awesome if you're wanting to become a pilot.
Check out that check out that Wall Street Journal article on the pilot shortage. That was really good. I'm going to screw up the number, but I want to say in the article it says that it was either 40, but I think it might be 60% of commuter airlines staff turnover every year because the major airlines are sucking them up.
Oh yeah. I believe that. Absolutely.
And freight is softening. And this article was saying that there's these huge bonuses being off. So FedEx and UPS are starting to possibly lay off. So everybody's fighting over these pilots because they're qualified, and there's a lot of interesting things happening. There's a captain shortage, now because a lot of guys aren't upgrading, and then it's just there's a lot of turmoil in the industry due to labor.
Yeah, well, it's just in general the pilot shortage it's created all these little I don't know what you want to label, all these tiny little swirls of problems that nobody ever would in a million years thought would be an issue. You got the major airlines taking the co-pilots from the regional airlines instead of the captains, which is blowing my mind. That's the biggest one for me. And you'd think, the typical way, you become a captain and then you move up to I'm sure that's still happening, but they're in droves. First officers, co-pilots are moving from regionals right to the major.
It's crazy. Man. Awesome. Well, it's good news for our viewers. So we want to encourage everybody that's interested in aviation and flying to just take that action and get out to the airport. It's really great. If you're just in the initial stages and you want a clear pathway of how to get started, select a flight school and everything, check out our course, the Pro Pilot Playbook. There's more information on propilotplaybook.com. We also have our live coaching that we're offering. You can pay an additional amount and get on our weekly calls where you can ask us anything. It's basically a Zoom call like what you're watching right now with a bunch of aviators on there, and you can learn from the other people. And actually, we're seeing some of the people coach the other people because they might ask a question that another student has already answered. So sorry we missed last week, but we're we're still dedicated to this, and we appreciate if you could pound the like button and subscribe to the channel. That really helps us.
Yep. And if you have a question for us you'd like us to answer on the air, you can email us at podcast@propopplaybook.com. And we're still looking for those video questions. Videotape yourself asking the question, and we'll play it right here on the show, and play your video, and we'll answer your question.
Sounds great. Have a good one.
All right. We'll see you guys.